Welcome everyone to the Coronado Rotary Club. Welcome all the members, all of our guests. And first of all, Happy New Year to everyone. Happy and health to everyone. So if you'll please stand, Ed Morris is going to do our invocation, and then we'll do the pledge.
Thank you, President Luann and fellow Rotarians and friends. This is an invocation prayer for the new year and for our club. The first thing is we have to say again, as we gather together as Rotarians and friends, we give thanks for the blessings that we've been given and enjoy. We have a lot of abundance and many good things, but many of the people in the world are in need, destitute, some in despair. We're thankful for the new year, for each morning with its light, for rest and shelter of the night, for health and food, for love and friends, for everything goodness sends. We're also thankful for the faith fellowship of our club that gets us together in so many things we do, their good works. I want to remind us as we go into the new year what our main focuses are: promoting peace, preventing disease, increasing water availability, improving sanitation, children's health, education and literacy, and helping communities develop. These areas of focus are a way for us to light up the club and volunteering on projects, helping in fundraising, and making contributions. Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is over here behind the screen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Okay, we've always said that we're a flexible club, and now we're going to prove it. So what we're going to do is we're very thankful that our speaker, Dr. Wendy Patrick, is going to speak first. She has to be in court this afternoon, and she was gracious enough to move up her time, and we're all thankful for that. So I'd like Jean Marie Bond to come up to introduce Dr. Patrick.
Well, it's my extreme honor to introduce Dr. Wendy Patrick. She has been, today she's going to speak to us about human trafficking, which, as we know, is a very prominent issue here given our proximity to the border. But she has been a prosecutor for almost 25 years, trying some of the most heinous and disturbing cases that have ever come to the district attorney's office. Not only is she a very accomplished prosecutor, but she's also an accomplished musician playing with the San Diego Symphony. And she is a prolific author. She's published more than 650 articles in the esteemed publication Psychology Today. I've had the pleasure of knowing Wendy for about 20 years. I was lucky to work with her at the San Diego County Bar Association when she was a director, and I was the director of education at that organization. And I can tell you, based on my experience with her, that when you see the words accomplished, tenacious, high achiever, or humble and kind in the dictionary, Wendy's Patrick's picture will be right next to that. So Wendy, without further ado.
So that's like the best introduction I think I've ever had. So I hope I can live up to that. If you just added that part at the end, that still would have been the best introduction. So I am blessed to know many of you, and Jean Marie knew each other in the legal profession. Where's Sandy? Sandy was big-time rainmaker lawyer in San Diego here. Of course, I know Georgia from the gym at the Shores, where I've lived for almost my entire life. And you know, it's just been such a pleasure to see so many of you come to this club. Where's Suzanne? Okay, and Suzanne had me as a speaker when we were meeting as a club in the Dell, and I still remember those days. Although I think I like this better. It's a more homier environment. I'm a Rotarian as well. That's one of my claim to fame is I actually have perfect attendance. And we met this morning, which is why I still have this around my neck. What I did during the pandemic is I spoke at clubs all over the world. I came up with a catchy topic. It was the bonding power of social distancing. So I spoke at Edinburgh, where I know some people are from, all the English-speaking countries, and I do still believe that we are closer together now because we were forced to stay apart. Now, what does that have to do with human trafficking? We are out of practice recognizing the signs and the red flags, all of us. And I'd like to talk a little bit about how we can get a little better at that and what human trafficking looks like post-pandemic. So I've sort of refreshed a program I've been giving for probably 20 years because it does look different now. So let me start with a question I always ask no matter where I speak. How many of you, and this is my backyard too, how many of you think that there is human trafficking in Coronado? Oh my gosh. How many people don't think there's human trafficking in Coronado? Aha. Okay, all the way in the back. Why not? Nice enough community where you wouldn't expect the customers. Who has a different answer that raised their hand and said, I don't think there's human trafficking in Coronado? Yes. So you're the other way. You recognize there is human trafficking in Coronado. Okay. So gentlemen in the back, that's the answer I get most frequently when I speak in upscale communities, is they say, look around. This is not the place where you would expect. There's no seedy dive bars. There's no bad areas of town. But isn't that the perfect cover for sexual activity? Isn't that where you wouldn't look if you were law enforcement? I can tell you that we have seen cases out of some of the most upscale communities because it's just the perfect crime scene because it's not where you would expect, cop cars to be driving back and forth looking for something. And it does happen domestically and more so now than ever exactly because we don't recognize it. I sometimes ask the question, do you think there's more sex trafficking or labor trafficking? Who thinks there's more sex trafficking? This is a savvy crowd. This is unbelievable. You guys are way too good. So why is there potentially more labor trafficking than sex trafficking? Who can tell me that? Yes. Easier to get the people over the border? What's another reason that there may be more labor trafficking? Yes. We have a lot of unskilled jobs available we need filled. Good. And how easy is it for us to identify labor trafficking? It's not. How easy is it for us to identify sex trafficking? You go on these internet websites, it's everywhere. You have to know what the buzzwords mean and what the little icons and the mnemonics mean, but you can find it because that's the way it's advertised. Who advertises looking for a labor trafficker? You don't. And that's one of the reasons it flies under the radar. You know how we find labor trafficking? Is sometimes the cops will be called to a house for a different reason. Maybe there's a loud argument, there's drinking, and then they come in and they see a cot in the garage, a locked door, things that lead them to then do more investigation to find that there's actually somebody living there working for free, working off a debt, as they say. But in any event, the Rotary Club connection, I just love speaking at different Rotary clubs. This is your club. You guys have an absolutely great website. I participate in Rotarians at work a lot, and I know you do too. And I've learned just since I've been here, you actually do some activities that I would love to be involved with. So maybe we can talk about how we can team up. This is us at Stand Down, where I actually gave the sermon every year. I'm also a Christian minister, so I'm very familiar with the way, the acts of service that we do collectively. My PhD, by the way, is in theology. You're thinking why is she calling herself doctor if she's a lawyer? No, I actually went back to school, went to seminary, and then got a PhD in theology. But in any event, we have a lot in common in that part of what we work at is the topic of today, is how can we identify people that are in trouble within our own communities? How can we be out at a concert at the park and recognize when a couple appears to be a little off, like it's not really a boyfriend-girlfriend, it's not a family relationship, it seems a little coercive, because coercion legally is the key to identifying human trafficking, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, this is what I did during the pandemic, is talked about lots of subjects, including this one, at different Rotary clubs because we were all meeting virtually. This is me in my real life. This is what I'll be doing after I meet with you. I'll be acting out some crime in court, which is what I do for a living. But I also have a lot of experience prosecuting human trafficking. I even have taught it around the world in different places, such as Hong Kong. I'll tell you, one of the most dangerous things I did, I taught it in Pohang, South Korea, and actually went on a missions trip to minister to the sex workers, which included going into the red light district with my little group of students and faculty, which in retrospect was one of the most dangerous things I think I've ever done with my life. Thank God I came out the other end, because that's not the place you want to be if you are not a customer, because the people that monitor and patrol the area have no interest in you interfering with that trade. But in any event, got me a little bit interested in the research, and I actually taught a class similar to kind of what I'm talking about today, is how do you know what the red flags are? And one of the biggest ways you do is by knowing legally what the elements are. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. Now, I understand one of the projects you do here is helping with one of the homes that house trafficking victims as they are being transitioned back into society. So earlier last year, I spoke in Hawaii. I know, tough job, right? That was a tough gig. On human trafficking, and got to visit one of these places and learned a little bit more about the topic of today, is what do you look for? And part of what these girls were sharing is that sometimes the acting out aspect of victimology is something that we would tend to look the other way if we see it, without recognizing, let's see who this girl is with. You know, there are men involved too. I hate to say it, but mainly the girls are the victims of sex trafficking. And it really revolutionized kind of the way I looked at teenage acting out, when I learned more about how whatever's going on after school that mom and dad don't know about is impacting that self-esteem. Sometimes to the extent, especially nowadays, that if they do get involved with an older boyfriend who takes pictures for a website and then puts them on the internet, that is the last thing that they're going to share with mom and dad, and that's actually going to really change their personality. So actually meeting and working with some of the population that I know you already serve can be very, very helpful. Okay, one more Rotary slide here. So I apparently met one of the defendants that I prosecuted at my own Rotary club without knowing it the year prior. This man passed away in prison, thankfully, serial child molester. But after the conviction, I actually had to try him twice because of jury misconduct in the first trial. But after I tried him twice, one of my fellow Rotarians in the downtown club told me, she said, I didn't want to tell you at the time, but you met that guy at a breakfast meeting and you were completely, absolutely just enamored by how accomplished he was. He was running a home where he would take in young boys and make sure they were mentored and cared for in ways that, of course, now we know a little bit more in retrospect. But these are the kinds of people that really got me interested in how come we don't see these red flags when we meet people that seem so, so nice, so accomplished, so smart, so worldly. Couple of the traffickers that I've prosecuted for pimping and pandering type cases have had white collar jobs during the day. But then where do they go after work? To the other condominium that they own. Again, always in a nice part of San Diego County, where they're carrying on trafficking activities. Now, why would somebody do that? Why would somebody be a Rotarian, a white collar worker, somebody that has a cappuccino machine in their kitchen in the morning, and then also be a trafficker? Why would you do that? Anybody know? Think about Jeffrey Epstein. Did he really need to be doing what he was doing? Didn't he have enough money without the rest of that? Okay, it's usually money. Sometimes it's, of course, sex addiction too as well. But the human side of human trafficking is just briefly what I'll talk about in the 30 minutes that I have. How do we recognize it? What kind of relationships should we be looking for? And then, of course, how do we respond? So this is the legal definition of trafficking. Most people have never read this. So I thought I would bring it to you so you could actually see all of what's involved. A lot of people think, how many lawyers do I have that are criminal lawyers? I know there's a lot of lawyers in every club. Okay, criminal defense, or were you prosecutor? Did both. Okay, very good. All right, so I won't pick on you, but I will say that you are one of the few people in the room that know that with every crime, there's all kinds of legalese associated with it, and so many people think, oh, human trafficking, that's prostitution. Not even close. Here's the legal definition. Recruiting, harboring, transporting, providing, obtaining, patronizing, or soliciting somebody for a purpose of a sex act induced by, and here comes what distinguishes this crime from many others: force, fraud, or coercion. Let's just stop there. How many teenagers are induced or coerced into selling their body for money by a boyfriend? More than you know. In fact, more than you could even imagine. And some of them share their stories once they become survivors. And they say, you know, it was after I did it the first time that all of a sudden I lost all the leverage and the power. Because it was downhill from then. I had a boyfriend that was now a trafficker, now that I recognized who he really was, who could always hold that against me because I'd done it once. So the argument became, well, then why don't you just do it again and we'll split the money, or I'll give you a little bit, or I'll buy you this, or I'll take care of that. And it was that vicious cycle, and then there goes the self-esteem, there go the friends, there come the bad relationships at home, but it's that first time. Now, the first time can even be taking nude or racy photos. So that first time doesn't necessarily have to be a full-on sex act. It's an insidious slide towards depravity that is often made to look luxurious and glamorous by some of these traffickers in the industry that know how to make it look like, well, everyone's doing it. Now, how do I know this? Am I guessing? These are the women I've put on the stand that have basically testified this is how it happened to them. Some of them were in college during the day. They walk into court wearing their little suits and pearls. You wouldn't think, oh, those are the trafficking victims coming in to testify. But they were. So these are some of the ways in which they've shared their stories. I've done an enormous amount of research. That's what happens when you go and decide to get a PhD. All of a sudden you become a researcher, and everything you want to do, there's got to be some studies that back it up. And sure enough, there are. Lots of studies back up this exact same thing. Now, obviously, if somebody's not 18, you don't need any force, coercion, whatever. Bingo, they are a victim, because you don't get to consent before you're 18 years old. Now, coercion is defined, and I want to spend a minute on this, because think about all of us in some way in our lives have felt coerced. Sometimes we feel coerced to being the one that's always picking up all the kids from practice after school, or maybe we feel coerced at work to do something we don't want to do. Coercion in the criminal sense, when it comes to a crime like human trafficking, means this: threats of harm to or physical restraint against any person, any scheme, plan intended to cause them to believe that they're going to be in trouble. Now, by the way, traffickers often tell victims, if you don't make a certain amount of money, don't even think about coming home. Or you don't get to eat, or you don't get a shower, or you don't get something that you need to survive, usually. Or, you talk about the undocumented victims, threatened abuse of the legal process. There are many traffickers that prey on those that have come here believing they're coming for a job, a legitimate job. And some of those, if they're in labor trafficking, they can't recognize legally the difference between unfair labor practices and human trafficking. They don't know. And that's one of the reasons it's very hard to detect. Because if you have somebody that doesn't self-identify as a victim, they're never going to call the police. And even if there are red flags in the community, people are afraid to be wrong. Think about all those that have been, in retrospect, found to have been building bombs in their basement and their garages. And when you interview the neighbors, they'll all say, I didn't want to say anything because, I don't know what's really going on. I don't want them to think that I told on them. Remember the San Bernardino case? They didn't want to appear racist because there was a demographic difference. There are so many reasons that people don't report what they see because they're afraid of being wrong. But you know what? Reporting what you see doesn't mean anybody's going to be arrested. It's a piece of evidence that can then sometimes be linked with other observations that other people have noticed. And then that's how we build cases. Okay, so what's a commercial sex act? This is another huge misunderstanding in the area of human trafficking, because if you watch movies or you watch TV shows, what do they show happening? They show, somebody hands somebody a dollar bill or a $10 bill or whatever it is. Sometimes it's thousands of dollars if you're a politician. That's what I say about the neighborhoods. But it's anything of value for human trafficking. It doesn't need to be money. Now, why is that important? Now, this is a good old school crime scene, okay, from one of my cases. This is great. Okay, you serve a warrant at a hotel room and you see this. Can anybody come up with an innocent explanation for this? It's hard, right? It's hard to come up with an innocent explanation. But that's not what trafficking money looks like nowadays. This is what it looks like now. This is how we follow the money in the trafficking world now. It's a Walmart gift card, or it is some other way of tracking digital currency for sex. And, the craftier the criminals become, we have to get right out there out in front of them. And we just keep up with the way that this is rolling on. They get off of one website, we chase them on to the next one. But that's how we do it. We do as best as we can to try to stamp out this crime. Now, if I had more time, I'd talk about the consumer end. Because if we could stop the consumer end of it, the customer base would be in a lot better place, because there wouldn't be anybody interested to begin with. And obviously, we're making strides, we're making efforts, but we could always do better. The anything of value, actually, let me ask you, what significance, if any, do these photos have to human trafficking? Somebody knows. Yes. Okay, right. Digital currency is very hard to track. How about the designer bag? What relevance does that have to human trafficking? What'd you say? A lot of them are fake, but if it was a real one, believe it or not, this has become one of the red flags. A lot of the pimps, the traffickers, will give the girlfriend a very expensive designer bag, because it's meant to falsely glorify and glamorize a lifestyle they're seeking to seduce these women into. Now, how else do I know? In fact, more than one, I would say several of the victims that have testified for me have said they were approached in a shopping mall by other traffickers saying, looks like you got the bag game going on. Meaning they assumed these girls were selling their bodies for sex because of the designer bag that they were carrying, and also because of their age. They looked a little bit young. In other words, they didn't buy it. And parents probably aren't buying their 12 and 13-year-olds real Gucci bags, right? For people who can tell the difference. I'm not one of them, but you're right. A lot of the fakes look really good. So these are the kinds of red flags that are anything of value. Remember, those are some of the things that are being given. So one of the other things we look at, let me talk a little bit about this, manicures and pedicures. I hate to stereotype, but suffice it to say, we see a lot of these victims that are very well taken care of physically. Why? Money. Who said money? Yes. Yes. In fact, part of the almost counterintuitive nature of the interpersonal dynamics of trafficking is you will find traffickers that'll meet young girls that are addicted to drugs, and they get them off of that addiction. Parents love them. Parents think, finally she's got a boyfriend that's a good influence. Why is the trafficker working so hard to get the young girl clean? It's a terrible answer, but I'll give it to you. Who would I hear somebody? Make her valuable. In other words, she can now go on 20 dates in a day rather than just 5 because she's strung out or addicted to drugs or unhealthy. Again, I'm not guessing. These are, not only is it that in the research, but it's some of the cases that I've handled. They've said, look, first thing you wanted to do is make me as healthy as I could. Good shape, manicures and pedicures. So if you have 11 or a 12-year-old that's got perfectly manicured and pedicured and the parents don't know why or how, or they certainly didn't pay for it, red flag. That's all I'm going to say. You never know. There's always alternate explanations, which is why there are so many different things. We call them data points. So many different things we can look at to try to figure out what kind of a relationship is this person in? Is this somebody we need to worry about? We look at those unstructured, unavailable blocks of time after school, which is where a lot of it takes place. Do you know where a teenager is between 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock? And if the answer is no, and it's a part of the day that the teen never shares, that's, again, one of those questions and one of the things we want to explore because we care so much about the people that are influencing our precious young ones. All right, here's the way labor trafficking is defined. Again, very different than not getting paid enough. Labor trafficking is not getting paid what you're worth. Because if it were true, we would all be victims, right? We're all underpaid, overworked. Labor trafficking is very specific. It's that same use of force, fraud, or coercion. Those words define both kinds of trafficking. So that's one of the first things we look at is, well, is it a bad relationship? Is it somebody that agreed to do something that then in retrospect, got cold feet and said, oh, I can't believe I did that? No, it has to be force, fraud, or coercion to legally be the crime of human trafficking. And that's important because if you watch enough movies and the news and things, you would think, well, everything's human trafficking. No. And you might think, well, why aren't more cases charged? Because these are the elements we need to prove is the answer. So in recognizing it, I always like to say, Lady Justice is blind. We're not. And the more frequently that we can be situationally aware, buzzword of the decade, we will be able to clean up our communities and take notice. I'll give you a prime example of that. And we're now all back out in action, so it'll work again. How many of you have spent any time maybe dropping off your teenagers or sitting around in a shopping mall food court? Okay, we got to admit it. I am old enough to remember when Orange Julius was in all the shopping mall food courts. Okay, it was the place that our parents felt comfortable dropping us off. We were too old to be constantly supervised and too young to drive. Why would that be an excellent location for traffickers to troll for victims? No parents. People think it's safe. So my sister's also a lawyer, and we would sit in a shopping mall food court, and we would think we could pick out the traffickers. They would be the guys. They weren't wearing Letterman's jackets. They didn't pedal on their bicycles to the mall. They drove there in some sports car, clean and shiny, usually red or black, and they were dressed like they were going to a club. What are they doing there? And here's the real kicker. Do you think that they approached the prettiest girls? You guys are too savvy. Why not? Why did they approach the girls that were not pretty? Just try to... Yeah, it was sometimes the most attention they reported afterwards they had ever had. Wow, they couldn't believe guy dressed like that, sports car outside, was interested in them. Again, these are the types of things that make sense when you think about it, but that's what we would basically look at. We are not blind, and there are lots of things that we can see. So these are 2 books I wrote kind of on the topic, especially this last one. But there's so much we can tell interpersonally. And, I think I may have given the Reading People program to where's Suzanne? Is this the program I gave to you last time? I think I did. Yeah, where, I always ask for volunteers from the audience and everybody else guesses what they're like and what they do on their off time. But there's just so much we learn about other people by paying attention. And since I think I'm almost at the end of my time, how am I doing on time? 5 minutes? Okay, so I'm almost at the end. One thing I also want to impress upon, everybody that wants to be a part of the solution, which I know Rotarians notoriously, all of us want to be a part of every solution. We want to solve all the world's problems. But part of that has to do with creating a world that doesn't tolerate these ideas that there's anything glamorous about trafficking. Now, this is a video game. That's me in the middle taking the photo. That's how I get around all the copyright. I take all my own photos for my PowerPoints. But you see at the top where it says Bling King, and it shows this guy and the two girls. Now, when do you think I took this photo? Probably like 30 years ago, right? When Pretty Woman came out. 2019 on a cruise ship. And they are still having this idea that there's something, clever or cute or crafty about having these kinds of parties, dressing this way, and glamorizing and furthering this stereotype. So I'll end it here. In our own backyard is where we sometimes think that our guard can be let down, but it's also in our own backyard that sometimes we need to look for some of these cases in particular. I have time for just a few questions. Yes.
Come back and tell us how to solve the problem.
Now, if I knew how to,
You showed us the problem. I've read about this problem for the last 20, 30 years.
I think part of the way we solve it is by understanding legally what it is and what it isn't, by understanding some of the red flags.
The FBI, the Coronado Police Department, San Diego, you read this stuff where the people get off, don't have time to follow it up.
Yeah, the problem with, and the comment was, you read a lot about people that get off, they don't have time to follow it up. I think one of the biggest problems with human trafficking cases is they're very difficult to put together. And one of those reasons has to do with cooperation of the victim, of the survivor. It's one of those types of crimes where you almost need to get that buy-in from the victim, from the survivor, right from the beginning. Because to them, and they've told me this. They'll say, you are breaking up my family. You've ruined my relationship. So sometimes that coercion element that is insidious within those relationships is something that we can recognize. It's different than like a kind of a really casual, fun relationship. It's not just necessarily an age difference, but recognizing more about this makes us better community members. If I knew how to solve it, I know that knowledge is power, and the more we know about it, the easier it is. But it's really frustrating that we can't solve it in more cases than we can. Yeah, good question. Yes?
How many cases have you had in Coronado?
The question was, how many cases have I had in Coronado? I haven't personally had one out of Coronado. But that doesn't mean it's not happening here. Yeah, great. Yes?
A few years ago, prior to COVID, I was in Cabo San Lucas, and I was just walking around with my husband, and I saw a young woman, a teenager, I'm sure, with an older man, and he sort of had his arm, holding her arm, and she looked so troubled, and he was kind of forcing her to move along, and I felt so helpless because I was just sure that he was trafficking her, he was coercing her.
I was just going to say that. You're describing visible signs of coercion, and that's always something that's a huge red flag. But then the problem becomes, what do you do about it? That's the million-dollar question, right? What do you do about it? Who do you tell? One of the things that you will find if you look on the internet, and I don't want to give a phone number because it might be different tomorrow, is there are lots of places to report concerning visuals like that, concerning activity. It's not a police agency, but it's an information collection. And the more information we can collect, that'll at least make us a little better at this. We've been talking about this for decades, and my boss, Summer Steffen, has been a pioneer in this arena and has done more to further the prosecution of these cases, the information collection, but it's not magic. We can't just solve it. The best we can do is educate people as to what it looks like and what it doesn't look like. Yes?
Education.
Yeah.
How can we get child welfare more educated in these red flags?
Yeah.
Because when a child is brought in, oftentimes they have no knowledge that that child has been a victim of human trafficking by the parents or in-laws or friends, whoever it is. So how can you do more education in child welfare?
You picked up the question? The question was, how can you do more in education and child welfare? In other words, when you bring in a child, how can we better educate those that are caring for the child? This is actually a trafficking scenario. The best way we do that is through what we're talking about here, is talking in more in depth as to what are the elements, what is it about, what isn't it about? And I do have to say, pairing with survivors are in the best position to minister, if you will, to current victims to help them understand what their relationship is really about. In fact, pairing with survivors is one of the only ways, because it's one thing to say, oh, I can only imagine. No, the victim will say, no, you can't imagine. Unless you've been in my shoes, you can't imagine why I would have done this, or why I felt like there was no way out, or why I had to do it again. But guess who can imagine? Other survivors that have come out the other end and are now standing in front of some Rotary Club somewhere sharing their stories. And by the way, survivors also share with healthcare providers as to, let me tell you what I wish somebody had seen when I was being victimized. All right, I'm getting the hook here. I guess you have to have me back. Okay, thank you all.
You want your computer? Yeah. Well, I know we all want to thank Dr. Patrick, Wendy, so much. Great talk. And it's something for all of us to think about. So what we're going to do is, like I said, we're reversing all of this, and we'll have past President Dan Orr come up, and we'll go ahead and introduce our guests. And then I can say that the visiting Rotarian would be Wendy Patrick. So we got that one down.
Yeah. In an inverse universe, we're perfect. Okay, I only had two of them sign in. One is a deputy district attorney in the Downtown Breakfast Club, and it's Wendy Patrick. The other is our old pal and engineer from the Houston West University Club, Charles Nelson Sr. Okay, do we have any guests of Rotarians? Suzanne? Yeah.
Please give a warm welcome to my guests. This is Richard and Joy Catlin. They've been here a couple years, and Richard has a long history with Rotary. His father was the district governor and the president of Carmel Club up in California, Northern California. So please give him a nice welcome. Thank you. Welcome.
And I have a special guest, Maeve Garrigan, right here. Maeve, she's new to Coronado, so welcome, Maeve.
Back in the hinterlands.
And it's with great pleasure I'd like to introduce my good friend, Bob Fillion, who's a neighbor and a golfer, and has expressed interest in joining the club.
Okay, I think that's it. Then let's go to Zoom. I don't know if we have any. I don't know if a lot of you remember Anna Ramirez. Anna was in charge with the hospital when we did the Sharp vaccination clinic. She was in charge of all of the volunteers. And I know she's a special guest. She's out of town. She was going to try to come on Zoom. So I'm not sure if she did, but anyway, so she'll be visiting us in the future, which is great. So next, what we always do is we ask our Red Badgers to stand up. And I know some of them are here. Let's see. I know Sarah Shevington's right here. Ronnie Hauser's there. Joe Malloy right here. Jerry Brown is there in the back. He's one of our newest members. I don't know if Hanadi made it. And I think Mike Jensen, I thought I saw Mike. There's Mike right there. I think I got everyone. Any other Red Badgers that I missed? So as I always say, please introduce yourself. Please. No, I was going to say Brenda Joe's not a Red Badger. I don't think you want to be one either. Okay, I think we're good on that. What I want to do next is, since it's a brand new year, one of the things that we do, it's a slide on the Rotary mission statement. And I think it's a good thing to start the new year. And we always read this to the new members when they start Rotary 2. Together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. And I really like the thing of creating change in ourselves. And I think most of us as Rotarians have found that Rotary has changed us a lot, and all for the good, for sure. Okay, next we have announcement slide. We have that. We will have a January social this month on Thursday, January 12th. Carol Summer, it's at her home at 1510 Maria Place. As we all know, it's 5:30 to 7:30. Bring an adult beverage to share, something to eat. And again, I know I lecture this every single time. Please bring your own cups so that we can get rid of the plastic cups. Okay, next, beach cleanup, Saturday, January 14th. Flags on the Avenue, Martin Luther King Day, Monday, January 16th. And the board meeting, Tuesday, January 17th. So next, if any of you noticed, when I didn't have 3 weeks of anything to do, it's dangerous because my mind starts thinking. So one of the things that I've added back here is a Coronado Rotary thank you board. And we always get a lot of letters and cards and so on from people that we've done something for, we've donated for, and rather than stand here and read all of them, I figured it was better just to post them, and at your leisure, before a meeting and after, you can look at them. And Jamie just gave me a whole bunch more. So we'll just kind of replace them little by little. Then the next thing that we're going to do is starting next week, and we're here next week. Everybody has asked when we did the survey, I want to know the new members. And that's one of the reasons that we have the Red Badgers stand up. But what we're going to do is at each table, there's going to be one spot reserved for a new member. And it's not only Red Badgers, but it's anybody that's new in our club, say the last year and a half. And it's just going to be one per table. That way, please, if you're new, gladly take a seat. And everybody, while you're eating, go ahead and introduce yourselves. Talk about it. Talk to them. Get to know them. So that's going to be something we're going to start next week. So next, Rotarians out and about. Oh, before I do that, a really important announcement. So as we all realize, everything is becoming more expensive. And as of January 1st, California has increased the minimum wage. So with that being, and food being more expensive, CYC let Jamie know that starting next week, it will be $36 for lunch. So the way I look at it is that could be like $6 for a tip, basically. But it's not only our club that is looking at this. I know that many of the Rotary clubs have the same problem. Things are becoming more expensive, or for the same price, their food is going down. So it's just something that we just have to deal with. I don't see it a problem. The Dell is still at $40. And I know that all of our venues, they do not make money or look at making money from us. They just don't want to lose money. And as a business, you can certainly understand that. So next week, don't be surprised when you register, it'll be $36. Okay, so care and concern, Jane Summerall, if you just want to come up real quick, I'll give you the microphone here.
President Luann, fellow Rotarians, as most of you know, we lost our member Bill Green last month. A service with full military honors will be held for him at the El Camino Cemetery on Saturday, the 7th at 1 p.m. And then there will be a reception at 4 p.m. that day here at the Yacht Club.
Okay, thank you. So next, Rotarians out and about. The first slide, I just want to give a shout out to a lot of people for the Rotary Holiday Party. We had 193 attend, and it was a great event. It really was. So I think we have one slide of that. And I just want to real quick thank Jacqueline Trapp, Jessica Hugh Perry, and Dominique Davis for co-chairing that. Past President Bill Sankey, past President Kevin Ruggie, Ari Van Voot, Susan Mitchell, Mary Taylor, Marilyn Reese, past President Suzanne Manuel, and the Coronado Rotary Chorale. So I want to thank all of you and anybody that's helped out for that. It was really a good event. Everybody really enjoyed it. So the next slide is, if you remember in November with Limbs of Freedom, Josh Peltz came and gave us an update and also showed us how they do the 3D imaging on the lower limb. So what he's done is they have to get new shoes. Every time they get a new limb, they have to have new shoes that match. So he had asked us before. I thought it's something that we could do. And so quickly before they went down in December, this last trip, he asked if they needed 4 pair of shoes. And this was like a day and a half before they went. So I want to thank past President Suzanne Manuel, John Pedrati, past President Ivan Dunn, and myself. Suzanne went to Walmart, got 4 pair of shoes, and they took him down there, and I asked him, these are some of the shoes that we provided. And so what I'm asking anybody that would like, I put a sign-up sheet over there on the table that as they go down 3 to 4 times a year, that at least I'd have a list of people to call if you want, because they give us a size, and it probably will never be, I don't know, 5, maybe 6 pair at the most. If you would like to be responsible for purchasing a pair. And like I say, it's not any more than $30 if you go to Walmart or Target. But that's something that's really valuable, that it helps them out. And this is what he showed us, and those are some of the shoes we bought, and those are, as you can see, the 3D imaging. So it's still amazing. They're going to do, I think, 3 more trips this year, possibly 4. So we'll be looking at raising money for that also. So then the next one, the next slide, Ride the Lights, we co-chaired that with the Optimist Club. And thanks to past President Dan Orr and Howard Summers, who chairs it for the city. Past President Suzanne Manuel was in charge of that for us. Thank everybody that showed up and helped. And then Debbie Boney from Boney's Bayside Market donated the 150 cookies that we had to donate from Rotary. So we had a thank you sign there thanking them for that. And and then Jane Simmerall, I have to thank Jane, 150 cookies that you have to individually wrap them. So Jane wrapped the 150 cookies, so I really appreciate that. Yeah. The next slide, again, Rotary Santas, and we all know this is what, 92, 93 years that we've had, 93. So a huge thank you to that. That's everybody there. Huge thank you to Bob and Debbie Syverson, Tim Hodges that were in charge of that, Ray Carno for taking pictures, and all the Santas, the elves, the reindeer, especially the fire department, and Chase Bank. So there were 351 gifts that were delivered in town, 13 Santas, 34 elves and reindeer, and 3 dressers. And the next picture, if you show that, okay. So here is Santa Wayne, and all I can say is next year you Santas need to check your sleighs to make sure that they work, because there is one that is not working, and the 4 fire department had to help out. So that was pretty funny. Then the last slide that we have is the Delta Beach cleanup. That one was Emerald Keepers with Amy Stewart. It ended up before they had the king tide. All of the stuff that's along the bay in the Navy area, the Navy said, okay, you can come and clean up. And they had 70 people between Rotarians and Emerald Keepers and volunteers that cleaned up that area as best they could before the king tide came in to pull all of that stuff back out in the Bay. So that was awesome. Then one other thing, really, I saw Marv Hayes here. Is thank you again for everything that you've done, and past President Bill Sankey on the City Council. Great job. We're all very proud of you. Congratulations on that. And then also to John Duncan. He's not here today, but he's one of our new City Council. So thank you again for everything you've done. Okay, so next, one of the favorite things, if past President Suzanne Pop can come on up, induct a new member. And Arlene Inch, if you want to come on up, and Marilyn. And I don't think Pat, is Marilyn not here? Oh, she's, okay.
Thank you, President Luann. The Rotary induction is one of the most important days of a new Rotarian. Today we induct Arlene Inch. Could everyone take a moment and remember your own induction? You may have felt awkward, nervous, grateful, excited, or all the above. As it is a fresh beginning, a chance to meet a whole new group of friends that with time will probably feel like family. As a Rotarian since 1991, let me introduce you to my family of 250 wonderful Rotarians in this club and 1.2 million Rotarians around the world. Enjoy this adventure as we all do. So everyone please rise and let me introduce our newest Rotarian, Arlene Inch. Okay, please be seated. And her sponsor is Pat and Flynn and her sister Marilyn, who's not here today. Arlene, I'm going to surprise you with this, but this is something that we do, and I didn't tell you first. But what inspired you to join Rotary?
Well, I wanted to give back to the community and meet everybody here and do my part. And I've returned to Coronado after many years, and so I have a lot of friends here and new friends, and it's just wonderful. I was Coronado High School way back, lived on Alameda Boulevard. They tore my house down. But anyway, I'm so happy and do my part in the community and get to know all of you better. Thank you. It's exciting.
And one more question, Arlene. What are 3 hobbies or interests that you have that you could share with the group so that some people have something to talk to you about when they meet you?
Oh, well, working. Working is one of mine because I'm still in business at my age, and so I have to do a lot of that. But I'm so glad to be here. I love to hike. I love walking. I love the beach. I'd like to go clean up the beach with all of you. So it's just whatever. I never really thought about that before. I like to party. That's another one. Can't think of anything else. And I like to support all the foundations or whatever and do my part. Thank you. Thank you. So excited.
Thank you, Arlene, and welcome. We're happy to have you. Give this back.
Thank you so much. And next, what we've done also, and it's kind of asking Arlene a little bit more about herself, is that we have always traditionally in Red Badge waited to do the Who Am I until they got done with all the requirements, which could be 6 months, could be a year, understanding that naturally. But the thing is, a lot of us don't get to know those things, like what are your interests, your family. So we decided that if a Red Badger would like to give their Who Am I early, that would be great. So call up a Red Badger, Ronnie Hauser. She decided she'd like everybody to know a little bit more about her, and I think that's great.
Okay, here goes. Hello, President Luann, fellow Rotarians and Rotary guests. I was born and raised in San Bernardino. I started in dentistry as an auxiliary in my senior year of high school. My career ended after 22 years. During that career, I found that I loved surgical assisting the most. I graduated from the Colorado Institute of Massage Therapy, where I earned the certification of neuromuscular therapist when I was 39 and am currently practicing today. I have one son who's 27 years old and is one of the greatest loves of my life. He has bipolar schizoaffective disorder and has managed to deal with it nicely, which brings me to one of my main goals. I would like to change legislature on how America helps people who have psychiatric illnesses. I would like to change in legislature to give the advocates who truly care the ability to step in and offer supportive guidance, maintain control until each individual can regain a healthy control of their own life. This is from the perspective of a loving, supportive parent. Another great love of my life is my husband, Adrian. He is all about computers, in which I know oh so little when we met. I'm making my best effort to learn from him, and I am now a level 80 dragon warrior in a massive multiplayer online role-playing game called Guild Wars 2. My hobbies are many, and that's in capital letters, but the highest on my list are giving massage therapy, loving all animals and horses, hiking, crocheting, cooking, and honestly, being a part of anything that sounds like fun. My newest seasonal interest is being an elf helper during the Christmas with Rotary. I had so much fun. I joined Rotary in hopes that it would help me give back to humanity, but also to get to know a group of forward-moving, forward-thinking, awesome people. And I am so happy to have this opportunity to be a part of you guys. And that's it.
Thank you, Ronnie, and we're glad to have you too. So I've got a couple minutes. I know if you're on Zoom and you want to donate shoes and be on that list, you can go to the chat and just put your name in and say that you want to donate with shoes on that, and we'll check the chat. And I think Sheriff Doug is here for something.
Somebody took my phone off the thing.
Uh-oh, somebody has Doug's phone off the table. I know that's going to cost something, right? It's going to have to be a fine or something, I think, yes. Yes. So, uh-oh. You know him too well, right? Okay, so everybody check their phone and get it back to Doug. Right, and then he'll let me know who it is so we can charge you the $25. Oh. Is it in your car? Oh, there's Tom's got it. Oh, Tom. All right, 25. Oh my God, he's going to do 50. All right. So that should teach everybody to watch what you pick up. Okay, so one other thing that I wanted to talk about is we have mentioned before the food pantry down at the IB neighborhood place down in IB. And so I have taken clothes down there. I've taken over 300 pounds of food down there. They are very thankful. So we formed a committee with that. Ginger Cox is on it. Jenny Johnson is chairing it with Ginger, and Carrie Siegenthaler. So it is now a formal committee. They will decide, they're going to let us know what food they need and what clothes they need. They have every Saturday a shower Saturday. I didn't realize, as many of us, that that's a real problem down in IB with people sleeping in their cars. So they're allowed on Saturdays to come in and take a shower, and they provide them with lightly used clothes. So I just want everybody to know that there is a committee. If you want to join that, you can let me know. Again, if you're on Zoom, you can put that in the chat. But that will be seeing the future. It'll be collecting food and mainly, I think, men's clothes, but they'll let us know what they want. Yes, and Ronnie. No toiletries. It is just, they'll let us know what type of men's clothes they need and what the food items. And it's mainly, there's some grocery store that gives them, I don't know, like produce, but they need canned goods. And so it's mainly what we brought was canned goods. So anyway, just keep that in mind for the future. So next week, we're back here again. Don't forget it's $36 from now on. And I can say that we are not the only club that is going through this. Everything is becoming more expensive. So it's just sign of the time. Please don't keep away just because of that for $6, because we enjoy having everybody come to the meeting. And it's going to be the financial market forecast. Past district governor and past president Dan Gensler is going to be the MC, and we'll have a panel of our Rotarian financials advisors. And I know we haven't done that for several years, so it should be really good. All right? Go out and have a great Rotary week.